Good morning. We're going to try this out. Some of you have been curious as to what's going on in my life, and I figured it'd just be a lot easier for me to explain it verbally on video than it would be for me to type out a long Facebook post or something like that. I appreciate you reaching out to me. If you're getting this video, it's because you've expressed interest in kind of what's happening in my life, and I figured I would share that with you at this time. So, kind of let's start with how I got here. Um, Probably the absolute worst day of my life is going to go down as October 12th. The sequence of things that happened that weekend absolutely broke me due to sin that was in my own life. There's a lot of things that I need to unpack about October 12th, but that's not what this video is about, so it's not going to be part of what I talk about. However, due to what happened on October 12th, I did make a decision to get some resources to help me heal from my built up pain, anger, and resentment that stems from a lot of things in my past. Things that I've held on to for a very, very long time, and quite honestly, for way, way too long. Part of that process was me deciding to go to CBC's Rebel Weekend. It's something I'd always wanted to go to. Never had the time as a principal because I always had to go to football games, or my sons were playing and I was watching them as well. So this is the first fall that the boys are not playing football for a variety of reasons. Their focus has been on baseball this fall, and it has allowed me a little more flexibility in my time. And so I signed up to go to Rebel Weekend because I really felt the need to be in a service like it was when I was a kid. When I used to go to Baptist Youth Camp, when I used to go to Disciple Now weekends, when I used to really feel God in a personal way, uh, due to that level of commitment that those activities often bring about. So to back up just a little bit about what happened before October 12th, our block is truly got some of the most evil Halloween decorations that I've ever seen. There are three or four of our neighbors at the end of the block who have decided to literally open up a gateway to hell with their decorations, their intent to scare people. It is true evil, and you can feel it, or at least I can, and my family can, coming down the block trying to get to our house. My wife felt this a long time before I did, and she was kind of freaked out by what was going on, how she felt. She put salt around our windows. She tried to, basically tell the demons that they were not welcome in our house. I kind of blew it off a little bit, but um, things around here got to be very, very tense in October. So going back to Rebel Weekend was amazing. It was exactly what I needed. There were about 1,500 men there in attendance, and it was just a great message, just a great time to be at the church. I have to give props to CBC. They did a fantastic job with this, but um, even before the message started, I knew I had conviction. And those of you that are believers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it didn't take long for me to find myself at the altar when the worship started. And boy, did I pour everything out on that altar. Just let it go. Let that pain, let that anger, just begging God to come back and fill my soul the way I was when I was really connected to Him as a youth and at various points in my adult life. But I just haven't been that close to God in a long time. And one of the volunteers there, he put his hand on my shoulder and prayed for me. And, he was telling me to just release it, give it to God. The song Egypt came on, and that song is one that has been in my heart all week, even leading up to the conference. And so, man, I jumped up and I'm singing along with it, and he is too. And then, man, that man embraced me in a way that I haven't been hugged in a long time, and I gave it right back to him. I mean, it's just a true embrace of love and just release of pain. Like, I don't know who this man is. I prayed that somebody would come into my life at CBC, and boy, tell me, it showed up. And the other thing about that experience was just I got to meet a lot of different guys, and I wound up having a lot of different conversations, and just realized. that's also something that's kind of missing in my life is I need to figure out how to reconnect with some great men of influence, and I've already started that process. Um, but I did pray for that kind of restoration, and felt like that was absolutely what happened that weekend. The message dealt with us as men taking the promises of the Bible and declaring the victory that we have as children of God. Alex Himea from Tulsa was the one that brought the message, and it was just really, really good. Many, many men came down and got right with God. It was very, very emotional. But Alex talked about how we have dominion and we have authority, and we are able to cast out demons just like he did the night before because he said that we allowed him to do that we gave him authority and dominion over us to pray over us for release of the things that were holding us back. But we as men of God have that same authority, and he took us through the scripture and showed us exactly where that lies. Our pastor Ed Newton also talked about how when men are dealing with things, a lot of times they have to verbalize it. And I kind of remembered that, in my head, in the back of my head, as I came home that day, because the whole message or the whole theme of the weekend was, "For as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Now that's something that we have talked about in my house, and um, we even had it on a framed at one point and hanging in my house. But I can honestly say that I have fallen far short of being the spiritual leader that my family needed and required of me, um, just due to a lot of different things in my life. So, with that said, I get done with Rebel Weekend, and I'm supposed to be going to see my youngest son, Michael, play in a baseball game. His nickname is Mac, so you'll probably hear me call him Mac a lot. But Mac was playing an afternoon game across town. And so, as I'm coming out of our church, it's a very, very busy place. And so, as you exit, you kind of have to work your way over on the access road. And I did that, but then I found myself in the wrong lane. And so instead of going straight as I had planned to go to catch 281 South, grab some lunch, and head on to the ball game, I wound up hooking a left turn. And I'm like, well, at this point, I might as well just run back by the house. I was wearing some pants and it had gotten really hot. So I thought, well, I might as well change into shorts and before I go to the game because it's just super hot and all of that. Even though it's October, it's still very hot here in San Antonio, Texas. As I'm making that left turn, my oldest son, John David, nickname is JD, so you'll probably hear me call him JD. He calls me and we talk about things. I told him, hey, bud, like I'm away. I'm going to run by the house. I'm going to change into some shorts. I don't know what I'm going to do for lunch. He's like, Dad, it's okay. We went to Chick-fil-A between games, so we have the sandwiches that Mom had made for us. So if you just want to eat that, you can have my sandwich. I'm like, cool. Like that way I don't have to worry about lunch. I just go home, change, and I can go. So, as I'm pulling up to the house, I'm feeling this overwhelming sense to purge. And at the time, I really thought it was going to be to get rid of things that have been a distraction or a hindrance to me in my walk with God. There's certain things that I needed to get rid of, uh, just physically get rid of out of my house that I felt like were obstacles. However, when I went into the house, it was a little different feeling. Um, I felt the need to declare my authority in God's name over my house. And I began shouting. And those of you that know my background know that I have a very deep voice. You know that I used to be a former coach and I can be heard all around. And so I just began shouting in my house that demons are not welcome here, that I have authority in Jesus' name and I command you to leave in Jesus' name. I am a child of God. My wife is a child of God. My children are children of God. And you have no dominion here. You have no authority here. And I demand that you leave my house. This went on for probably a good 10 to 15 minutes. And I will tell you that the majority of my time was spent in certain rooms in my house that absolutely needed to be cleansed of what was going on in our home. And so I'm exhausted at this point because I am full on yelling. I'm surprised somebody didn't call the cops because it was very loud. But I just kept shouting and shouting and shouting until I felt a sense of relief. and there were some interesting sounds that went along with this, and I'll talk more about that later. Um, so then I go ahead and go on to the ball game, and I'm sitting up there with my son. My wife was at a school function, so it was just he and I. And I was telling him what happened, and he was kind of just incredulous to the whole thing. But he's listening, and we're watching a ball game, and let me tell you, there's a whole nother testimony about that ball game about my son, but that's probably going to be in a different video message at some point. So anyhow, we're coming home from the game. Long story short, on the game, we wound up winning the game 3-2. It was a fantastic ball game. Mac had a big role in that as a catalyst. And like I said, we'll talk about that story. That's a different story. I think he and I might want to tell that one together. But we come home, so it's Mac and I riding together, and then John Davis trailing behind because he was going to go to Walmart to pick up some things because I was having a barbecue afterwards, and he wanted to get some things as well as some fishing gear. For this past weekend, we just went fishing in Conroe, so he wanted to grab some stuff to take on that trip. But anywho, so Mac and I get home, and Mac's faith has been strong. Mac has been a believer for a long time, and he's a lot like me as a kid. If you knew me as a kid, that's my youngest son. He's very, very emotional, very fired up, very just that guy. And I love him to death. But I see a lot of myself in my son. So anyway, the two of us come in, and I walk in the house, and we smell something really sweet. And I kind of looked at him. I said, "Mac, you smell that?" I said, "It kind of smells like sugar cookies." And he was like, "Has mom been home? Has mom been baking?" I said, "No, bud. Like, I don't think so. I mean, she had come home to shower and change before she had to go to her next function, but she hadn't done any baking." And he said, "Dad, it smells like sugar cookies." I said, "Yeah, it does." And he just said, "Dad, it smells like heaven." And one of the things that I had prayed about when I cast the demons out was that whoever entered our house would experience God. And for the two of us, it couldn't have been more real. John David came in a short time later, and he's walks in and just without any prompting from Michael or I, he just goes, "Dad, did mom make sugar cookies? It smells like sugar cookies." And I'm like, "No, son." And I kind of told him the same story about what's going on. Well, Michael, being the fired up kid that he is, he decides he's going to crack out his Bluetooth speaker, and we're going to crank up some praise and worship music, and we're just going to have a good old time here at the house while he showers and gets ready. And so we did that. So Michael grabs his speaker, and it gives him the low battery warning right off the bat. Well, with that speaker, when that low battery warning comes, it usually means you've got about one song before you better plug that thing in. And let me tell you something, that speaker did not die for over 2 hours of playing praise and worship music and us singing as we cleaned our house, preparing for the company that was coming for the barbecue. God is doing a work, absolutely doing a work in my family. The enemy is still very much under attack with us, but that's okay. We are rooted deeply in the Word. We know what we're doing, and we have declared war against the enemy. Our house will not support the evil that is on the block. My son decided to build, or we decided to go ahead and put out lights. We have lots of white light on our yard. My son built a cross out of white lights. We've strung our tree with white lights. We now have a flag that hangs on our garage that says faith over fear. And we're going to create a safe refuge for those kids that might be terrified coming down the block, because the other piece of this story is when Michael was young, the same people that initiated this absolutely monstrosity of evil at the end of our block were terrorizing kids with chainsaws. They didn't have chains on them, but they were in costumes, and they were running around the block with these chainsaws. And I mean, it scared my son almost to death. I mean, he was terrified of that moment. And so, I don't understand the need for this. I don't understand why people have taken Halloween to the nth degree. But boy, it has absolutely become a problem for us. And I'm convinced that evil filled our house. And I really believe that started the moment that my wife started feeling that these spirits were on our block. because she did take. We have a rock that I bought a long time ago, a garden rock that says that's for let's meet at my house before the big game, and it's signed God. And so she took that rock from where it was at and she put it in front of our tree. And I really think at that point, once she placed that rock down and kind of declared this to be a house that was for God, that's when the enemy really started to attack. And it, it's been rough. I mean, but ever since we've prayed over this house and we've done some other things, mostly me getting my life back on track and spending time in the Word every single day and praying to God and asking for His revelation, for His protection over my family, for His protection over this house. Things at the house have been good, and I've got a peace that I can't even explain other than it's the peace that comes from Jesus Christ. And so there's a lot more coming. I have a lot more stories about what's happening in my life, but I just wanted to create a video to kind of explain the start of this and also just give feedback about what you think about this story. I feel like I'm being called to something big. I don't know exactly what that is yet. God has given me visions of a book, God has given me visions of a podcast, and I've also had visions of me testifying at Rebel Conference next year about the things that have occurred since then. So appreciate your listening to this. This is a fairly long video, but it's a massive story for me, and I just pray that you would pray over me, pray over my family, pray that I would be able to fully understand what it is that God is calling me for. This is my home office. I'm surrounded by kind of things from my office, from my career, from college. So this is a great place for me to kind of come back, meditate, work. This is my home office when I'm working from home. Um, but this is just a place where I feel really comfortable, and so I think that this will likely be the setting for the majority of the videos that I produce when that time comes. I may have to get some better equipment, but this is just my first shot at what this could be. Again, thank you so much for listening. Any feedback is appreciated. I'm going to keep these videos in a very tight circle. Initially, I thought I was supposed to post these on Facebook, but I had a good friend that told me that that might not be the best idea, that I probably need to share this with a close circle first and then kind of see how the Lord leads. So I am attentive and listening to the voice of God from wherever that source may be. Appreciate your time. Talk to you later. If you're getting this, I love you. Bye.